Okay, so we have a new episode of Legends and Leaders, and today it's great to have Jody here. Jody, you're somebody that's had done a lot of different things in your life. Now, you're the CEO of Summit. You're bringing a lot of people together, a lot of the brightest minds to help each other learn and grow. You've been involved in consumer products. You've helped a lot of different companies, help them grow and help their leaders specifically also learn. You've been involved in creating a really healthy watermelon drink brand that was, just a couple of different ingredients. You've helped with disaster relief for like Hurricane Sandy, and your dad, I think, started that company off. You've been involved there, so you've done a lot of good to give back to people. And I'm excited to have you here and to get into your story.
Thanks, Ben. I'm happy to be here.
Awesome. So, Jody, how did your passion for entrepreneurship, business, kind of begin? Like, was this something you had when you were young? What kind of inspired you to get into being a business leader?
I don't think I ever really set out to be a business leader. I set out to be an artist, which I am. I paint, I make very large pieces, and I create big installations and interactive installations that kind of communicate and tell stories. So when I finished in art school, which was a journey, I have a degree in painting. I built a design company, an experience design firm. And it was like the perfect intersection of immersive art, storytelling, branding, building concepts and products, launching products. Like it was all these different mediums that were coming together and converging for the first time. And the nature of building things that have never existed before is kind of the same as building a product or a brand or a company from zero to something. And I grew up in an entrepreneurial household, so it was sort of like ingrained in me, although I'm not sure I knew that. And it just sort of took me. And I soon realized it was kind of my happy place.
So, how impactful was your dad to shaping, kind of the direction you went in?
My dad was the best. Both of my parents actually are amazing entrepreneurs. I grew up in a family where building things and running business was all kind of integrated into our lives. So, my dad and his father were in the motion picture industry, and they had warehouses full of concessions, goods, and we would be in and out of movie theaters and different types of like entertainment facilities. And then that kind of evolved into the addition of athletic apparel. And we had Gatorade before anybody. I remember when Rollerblade was released, and like my dad came home and was like, check these things out. We were testing rollerblades, and working and building businesses and bringing in new products and showing things to new people and distributing goods, and the operations and the marketing and the sales of all that. Now in hindsight was kind of like part of our lives. Like my mom ran retail stores that she owned and built, and we built brands together, and we were all in it. So I was very lucky because and to this day, we all support each other. We build things together. My father's no longer with us, but he very much gave me a master's in business and very much taught me a way of doing business that's centered around over communicating and really being fair to all parties, which is, I think, why I love negotiations, and I love, building things together and structuring deals and, advising in so many different ways that I do.
So, how did you kind of start your first business? Like, how did you start to build something that was your own?
Oh, wow. Well, I finished in art school at the Art Institute of Chicago. And I had always been in production. My dad had me on headset when I was 6 years old. And I love design. And I very quickly knew that my artwork, I wanted pure. I wanted that to be the place where like I could express ideas and concepts and visual language and the currency of energy that wasn't reliant on making a living. But I love design. and I design all kinds of experiences and technology and like the intersection of all different disciplines. So myself and three other people built the world's first experience design firm. We built it out of Detroit, but we were doing things all over the world. For more than a decade, we basically launched every automotive product for Lexus, Toyota. We launched the brand Scion. We worked with everyone from GM to Ford to Chrysler and launched all of the non-traditional powertrain vehicles. So we were like the first people to take these ideas around hybrid fuel and fuel cell technology and hydrogen, fuel cell, like all these different things that were concepts in 2001 that the world hadn't really seen yet, and found ways to bring them into the world that brought people into the story and helped people understand very, very complex science. I got to work on the launch of Tesla because Tesla was using Toyota batteries. It was awesome. And then with that, because experiential design was this kind of novel concept, it was sort of like installation art meets marketing communications. We were simultaneously building the early interactive installations at Coachella and doing stuff at the Museum of Modern Art in New York and designing like permanent galleries at the Museum of Science and Industry in Chicago. And we'd be called to do like activations with Coca-Cola and other big brands that were like, we want to touch people in new ways. And so we were getting into how do you take traditional advertising, traditional PR, and bring it into people's psyche, have people feel the experience of a story and leave an indelible impression. And that concept of telling stories, building immersive communications, finding ways to really like tap into what people feel has been a through line to all of the brands and businesses and products that I built.
So you thought, Jody, that like a better way to communicate, just what a business is creating or some sort of product they have is to create an experience around it. And that what really wasn't done much before.
Yeah, I think that the truth, which is very timeless, is this. When you can create, whether it's a brand, a product, a company, or even a technology, and you start from the core communication, and you can really identify what the need state is, what it's solving for, and what that core story is, and then make sure that every single expression of that story, whether it's the finance team, it's the people that are building the website, it's the social media people, it's, every single person is aligned and understands how to tell that story in their respective language. It creates an integration. And then when you identify who your audience is, obviously, and you can figure out a way to bring them into something to create a memory. We know so much about neuroplasticity. We know so much about memory. We know so much about how color and light and sound and like touch, the sixth sense of proprioception impacts people and leaves like a positive memory. So we need to use that science and tell stories. Now, I tend to do that with things that help people heal themselves, help people feel happy, help inspire them. And, I think that it's something that can be applied to almost anything. And then the creative process comes when you really know who you're talking to and what they need to help them be optimized.
So is that also like you're thinking when creating watermelon water, like make something simple, healthy, that really just communicates exactly what it is to people?
Yes. So watermelon water came from a very similar place. My co-founder put this fact in my head. There are 800 million pounds of unused watermelons in America every year. That is like a very large amount of waste and a lot of resources and a lot of water and a lot of money that is wasted, which then focused me on food waste, which is an epidemic around the world, but especially in America. So we knew that, watermelon is more hydrating than coconut water. We saw obviously an opportunity in the market to create the category of watermelon water and basically built the brand, the product, and the category at one time. Now this started in 2012. The product was launched in 2013. And while food waste was a huge focus, especially for why we were doing it, the clean food movement was more important. The awareness around the epidemic of obesity and obesity driven disease in America was just starting to really be known. And we were on the front lines of getting clean products to conventional grocery. So traditionally, you could go to a juice place, or you could go to Whole Foods, you could go to Erewhon, and you can spend $10 on a cold pressed juice. But we were working to bring it down to, $3, $4, $2 in some cases, and take it to everybody. And so we fought the good fight. I mean, it was like, yes, the storytelling around it is totally aligned with what we're talking about. But more interestingly, that type of thinking had to go into like, how do we get this to market? Like, we had to call dairy distributors and convince them to put cold pressed watermelon water on their trucks. Or we had to talk to, in some cases, produce distributors, because it has to stay cold. It has to be at a certain temperature, right? So it's like the same kind of communication is used in the same ways when I'm like trying to hack, an old school supply chain challenge, or like figure out how to scale something that's never been done before.
You figured it out. So
yeah, that's the fun part. Once it's figured out, then I'm like, somebody else gets to like take this and love it and nurture it. It's the Tetris of it that makes me really happy.
So a different venture you were involved in was Gem and Bold. What kind of like drew you to that? Was it just the family and how unique the family was in the Mezcal space? Like, why did you decide to be involved there?
So I met the two founders of Gem and Bold, excuse me, when they were making mezcal and basically serving it at really, really special gatherings and events in Tulum, Mexico. I fell in love with the fact that the brand was so based on fine art and craft. It was two women. I joined, it was the three of us. We brought mezcal to the world, in terms of like, we brought mezcal to America. We introduced mezcal to a lot of different groups of people that hadn't been drinking mezcal and didn't know that it was like 100% pure agave, super clean. Ours happened to be distilled with an aphrodisiac called Damiana, which was really delicious, and it felt a certain way. The reason that I got involved was threefold. One was I saw an industry that was notoriously male, and I thought it was very, very amazing for the three of us women to come in and like launch a spirits brand and really be able to advance that. The second reason is because most spirits are really not clean. And as I was on the front lines of the clean food movement with watermelon water and some other ventures I was involved with, it was so amazing to be able to have like an all organic, super cleanly grown, sourced, and produced product. It was ripe in the market. Now there's a handful of products I really trust. And to build a brand and expand a brand that's really based on fine art is so rare these days. And you like has that rebel spirit to it, which is very much kind of ingrained in my world. And we were doing amazing parties around the world with the best musicians and DJs and the most awesome humans. And it was super fun. It was a great journey.
Did that kind of like plant the seeds for also like, your passion for events and things like Summit?
No, I think it was all sort of simultaneous. So I've been part of the Summit community for many years. 2012 was when I first kind of joined the guys. I very much brought all of my products to Summit. When I was launching watermelon water, more nationally, like outside of the New York region, one of the first things I did was I brought it to Summit, because I knew, and this is true today, that the people that come to Summit Series events are kind of on the front lines of knowing about cultural trends, but also they're very active doers. So if you give them a call to action, they actually go and do the thing, right? So if you're like, hey, here's my new product, it's the best hydration product in the entire world, this is why everybody needs to drink it, they're like, oh my God, this is amazing. And then they'll go share. Same thing with Gem and Bold. the Summit community was very much, on the same parallel journey of understanding how important what we put in our body is to fuel our bodies and to optimize, how we as high octane humans can like constantly take it to the edge. So I remember, as soon as we had permissions to go into certain states with the TTB, would participate and do tastings and bring Gem and Bolt to the Summit community, and people loved it.
So, Jody, you've been involved in Summit for quite some time. What kind of drew you to it initially? Like, how did your involvement initially start? Like, what did you see in Summit? Because now it's very different from 2012.
I've been very lucky that I have lived on an adventure of life where I get to meet amazing people. But the thing that was always missing for me, even in a world where I was meeting amazing people across the globe, I had a hard time finding other people that wake up with like ideas dripping from their fingertips and with the desire to like build and create and work. Like I love working. We started this conversation and I told you I grew up in an environment where like building businesses and doing work was like a love language, not like something that, you plugged into a certain part of the day. And when I went to my first Summit gathering, I realized I was surrounded by other people who get immense amounts of joy out of building things and collaborating and like for the love of business. And so throughout my journey and, in 2020, when I came on as a partner and took over the business, I did so because I know how rare it is to have a global community that is connected by the love of creating things and the love of making everything better than the way that they found it. And that's like a really rare thing to find in people. So we have this community of all of them and we get to really, it's like a magnet, right? Like we get more and more coming in. And I think most people feel like they finally, like they'll say like, I finally found my people. I've been looking my whole life. Like I finally found my humans. I don't know where they've been.
So it's just the environment, the types of people that are there. It's that same spirit that you have.
In terms of Summit,
Yeah.
I think that Summit is a lot of things. Summit's the foundation for where this community of people get to come together. Planet Earth is our campus, right? We don't have bricks and mortar. We meet all over the place around like shared curiosity. And some people, I'm super into M&A. I love deals. I love investments. I love helping businesses grow. Like when there's gatherings around business, I try to be there. I love meeting other people that like speak the love language of, finance and a P&L. I love like fine art and design and to be able to curate experiences. Like we're doing something in June at the Venice Biennale. It's the 60th Venice Biennale. There are the most amazing contemporary artists being featured. And we're gathering a crew of 30 people that are going to get to come and, have like 3 days of curated art tours and like all kinds of experiences. Like I wouldn't necessarily want to go to that if I didn't know that the other 29 people are curated, for lack of a better word, or have gone through a lens to know that they're either like the best at what they do. They have a curiosity and a love and a commitment to like really living what they're doing in life. And that doesn't necessarily mean business. I mean, we've got people who are astronauts and artists and musicians but there's a similar type of kind of lust for life that I think the people in the Summit community all share.
So what goes into putting together like, Summit at Sea? I mean, what kind of goes into actually making that happen?
Every part of my soul. Summit at Sea is so fun to produce and execute. So it's about a year's worth of work.
Wow.
Um, it starts with our partnership with Richard Branson's Virgin Voyages, and that team there is amazing. Like they understand our attention to detail. They understand our attention to like how we want our people, treated. They understand when we come in and our chefs um, go through every single recipe at every single restaurant, and their team works with us, and like they're amazing. um, I typically start by thinking about how many people we want to host, how many stages we want to run for 4 days and nights straight. So for anybody that doesn't know, we basically host 2,500 people for 4 days and nights of a choose your own adventure that never ends. And our production team is about 250 people. They're on day and night in different cycles. They're there because they love working with Summit. They love what we do. And then we start to think about, what's really relevant in the world and who we all would want to be hearing their wisdom, or pairing people on, stages together to have conversations around topics that they don't normally have conversations around. Or we, find artists who are doing amazing things related to, sonic storytelling. We find wellness experts and scientists and people at the forefront of, what's coming in medicine to speak and present and lead interactive workshops. And we look through this lens of, thought leadership, of what's relevant in the world today, performance art, um, culinary experiences, impact, and what call to actions we can help instigate, and health and happiness. And then we also outline all of the different subsections of what our community is into, from angel investing to, meetups related to global travel to, the people that are all from Detroit and where they get to gather. And the team basically creates a gigantic puzzle. And by the time the terminal opens, in the case of Summit at Sea, or the doors open for a different flagship event, everybody gets to come in and we, conduct the symphony. And things are happening simultaneously in like more than 20 spaces at one time at all times. And from a guest experience perspective, they get to show up, they get to see people that they haven't seen in a long time, maybe have never seen, have never met, and they get to drop into something with 2,500 other people who drop in fully present and are there for the total surrender of the whole experience, which is a very special thing for us because we get to host and present and curate content and experiences that we know are really being received.
So you're also doing disaster relief while you're doing all of this, right? I mean, how do you do it,
Um,
Jody?
um, a lot of coffee. So in 2005, after Hurricane Katrina, my father and I founded a disaster recovery company called Base Tactical. Base Tactical helps cities and states secure FEMA funding or grant funding for disasters in an emergency. Um, my father passed away last June, and I did take over the business. I'm very lucky that I have amazing teams around the country. Um, and because of the style of business my dad always did, which was very, high integrity and over communicative, and he was really part of the team of the people that he worked with. In an effort to really honor his legacy, I have stepped in and I'm, running the business. So it's an honor, and it's amazing to really see how we can continue to help the cities and the states and things.
It's great that you're doing that. So just the last question that I have, Jody,
Yeah.
at this point in your life, your career, what do you aspire to accomplish next? What are some things that you haven't done yet that you want to do? I mean, you've done a lot of things, but what do you want to do now?
So I have always wanted to direct the Olympic opening ceremonies.
Hmm.
This is like one of the things that I really want to do in life. Um, and I'm not sure like where it's going to fall in or how it's going to fall in, but it's like this thing that I'm like, I want to do that at some point. Um, I, uh, I love to teach. I don't have any time to teach right now, but it would be an honor at some point soon to build a school of some sort. Um,
Huh.
I learned through experience how necessary and sacred the language of finances. And I have this vantage point that I, share with a lot of people that I work with around like the creativity that lives in the numbers. And I believe that that's like the freedom of building businesses and scaling businesses. So I have this dream to figure out how to teach like founders to be great executives, how to teach creatives to like see the magic of finance and numbers. So there's been this kind of thing brewing, and I'm working on a book about time, the sacred currency of time, and how to hack it and architect it and use it to all of our advantage so that we can do more than we think we can in a minute or a day.
Well, Jody, thanks for coming on. I'm definitely excited to see, what you'll continue to build this new book and hopefully get that opportunity, to direct the opening for the Olympics. But, what you're doing now with Summit, I think is so, so awesome, and it's helping a lot of great minds really connect and build new things to impact the world. So definitely looking forward to what you continue to do and wish you much success. Thanks for coming on.
Thank you so much, Ben. And if anybody's interested in learning about Summit, we have an application process. They can go online and apply to join.